Hello, welcome to Undisputed Boxing, Boxing News Edition. Thanks to everyone again for viewing and sharing the video on Billy Joe Saunders' prediction and post-fight reaction, and for all the comments as well. I'm here with Rick. We're going to talk news, catch up on some of the latest breaking news. I think we could start with the Philip Hrgovic and Michael Hunter fight is now off, it seems. I'm a little bit disappointed with this. But yeah, how are you feeling now, Rick? Are you a bit more awake and alert now?
I am actually. I did get about a 45 minutes kit during the F1. So I'm a little bit more with it. But I have got my jab later, so I'm a little bit worried about that. Yeah, interesting news. Disappointing news, because that had been a good kind of fight. Two different types of fighters. Always good to see how the stars would gel. Not quite sure, not heard why Hunter's pulled out. It may be to do with the purse. But, you know, I think he was flapping his mouth saying, go to purse bids, there'll be, you know, Triller might bid and stuff like that. And then I think it was only Hearn and Co that put a bid in, and maybe it's not what he thought. Don't know. It's hard to comment until you know the reason. You know, whether is it an injury, then fair dues. Is it doesn't like the financials? Fair enough. It's his kind of something. Think that way. My view would be, you know, it's still a fair bit of money, and more than anything, see the bigger picture. It's a shot at the IBF, who call their mandatories. Yeah. No messing about. They'll get his shot next year.
Yeah, for sure. I think the fight was offered to Charles Martin first, and then he didn't fancy it. They went down the order. Michael Hunter's in a bit of a kind of a no man's land because I don't think he has a network. He's not officially with anybody. He's kind of a free agent, so he hasn't really got anybody kind of putting their hands in their pockets. Because I do think that the purse bid, I thought it was a little bit on the small side, 600K. Once you've split that and then you paid your trainer and you paid your manager and whatever, he's not going to have a lot left over. So I kind of understand if that's, what it was, then I can kind of understand why he's not. Obviously disappointed. I don't know who.
It's kind of market value, isn't it? No one else bid, so no one else fancied the fight. So it's kind of like, I just don't know where he goes really, because, maybe he gets a shot against Andy Ruiz and he gets more money for that. But then I'm not sure that's an eliminator for anything. And is that a harder fight? Just depends on maybe that's what he's thinking. If I get a shot Andy Ruiz, I might get $1.5 million for that. And that's the whole package of $1.5 million and winning it and what that means is better than that. Don't know. It's hard to say, but it does seem small on the scale of things, but market value and kind of, they're not big names. And no. Hunter's not a big name. He's not really done anything to help himself. So, if he'd won that Povetkin fight, it might have done a bit more for him. But yeah, he is kind of in no man land because he's dangerous and he's not, worth that much. No. Hasn't got a great. The other thing I had seen, we discussed this earlier, was WBC president someone was tweeting something about some drug testing he's missing. Weird, really, for the president to be kind of coming out in that, and that's the one where you don't have to do it. It's kind of, I think
it's the WBC voluntary testing that they run. So he can voluntarily not choose not to be tested, which is it is a little bit strange for Maurizio Sullivan to be digging somebody out like that in public. But I can't see him fighting on the fight being sanctioned by the WBC anytime soon as a result of that. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see where he goes next. Have a quick look, just whilst we're on that subject, just have a quick look at the rankings on the IBF, because I wonder who they will turn to next. Because I'd imagine they want to get something booked pretty soon, because Philip Hrgovic is in danger of being a little bit inactive now in this period. But as you go further down, you've got Joseph Parker, Ajit Caballo. Tony Yoka is ranked number 8. That would be interesting. That'd be a big move if Tony Yoka's team went for that. I can't see them doing that, to be honest. And Luis Ortiz and Kubrat Pulev make up the rest of the top 10.
Maybe it's one for Pulev, because they might get a bit more money if Pulev's involved, because he's a bit more of a name. And does he bounce back to, challenge Joshua again, or whoever has it at the time?
Yeah.
Could be something for Pulev, the last throw of the dice. I mean, he doesn't need big money in a set, you wouldn't have thought. So it's just a way of getting back in one fight. But it's a risk, obviously. I mean, it's annoying with people like Charles Martin and stuff like that, because it's like, if it's kind of like, if you got offered it and it's like, well, no, I need a kind of a warm-up fight because I've not fought for a while. Fair enough, but where is he? Where is this warm-up fight? I mean, Al Heyman's lot on PBC, just don't know what's going on. I don't know if they've all been furloughed. They nothing seems to be moving.
No. Well, they're having a lot of in-house fights and fighting. In terms of their flagship fighters, I'm talking about Gervonta Davis, Jamel and Jamal Charlo. They're not going to fight on another network, or they're not going to get drawn into like a purse bid or unification. If they do a unification, it'll be on their terms and it'll be on Fox Sports. So that's a little bit frustrating. One of the frustrating things about boxing, altogether, I guess. But
I hope some of these fighters at some point turn around and say, "Listen, how are you going to make me a legend? I can't become a legend fighting on Fox and in-house fights all the time." For some of them anyway. So so disappointing with that, and it's hard to know where each go now. But there's an IBF thing to be had. So shock.
It could very well be vacated as well. I think the IBF.
Here's a shout though. I mean, would I suppose it's a risk because he's already kind of mandatory for WBC. But I wonder if Dillian White goes in. So it's a risky fight, isn't it? And does he need it really if he's already mandatory in another belt? I'm just thinking that the IBF are more likely to give him a shot than WBC.
Yeah, I think a lot of things are kind of sort of bottlenecking now with the AJ Fury. I think once that fight is announced, hopefully it's a little bit like a mega transfer in football. Once there's massive 100 million plus transfer done, then it has a knock-on effect, and there'll be loads of other fights agreed on. I'm really hoping that Joyce and Usyk will be made as well as a result.
Yeah. Talking of which, next week it's meant to be. I said that for the last month, but
you're starting to sound like Eddie Hearn.
I know, but actually, I don't. I mean, he actually said it on DAZN TV.
Yeah.
So I'll be surprised if it's not enough.
Yeah.
It must be done now. So we'll maybe do a cheeky video when that's announced on the day.
Yes. Who you? I don't know if we've talked about this on the channel before. I might have even asked you already, but who are you picking at the moment between Fury and AJ?
I think you ask me this every week.
Do I? I'm still not sure,
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, I'm not 100%. But my view at the moment is I lean towards Fury because I think it's a bit up to him what happens in the fight. I think if he goes in Klitschko style, he's got a very good chance of winning. And if he decides to do that, then I think if he goes to Deontay Wilder mode, he still could win. But it probably leans towards Joshua at that point. If it's fighting more in the pocket and if he's going for it. I mean, it's like Joshua. Fury's seen as kind of like really elusive and really quick at punching and stuff, but he isn't as much when he's loading up on his shots like anyone is. Yeah. I think he's hard to hit when he's throwing those awkward punches, but they don't hold any hammer. Klitschko was never hurt in any of those rounds, and he was getting caught, but from these, I'm not say tip tappy because they're heavyweights and he's a big guy, but do you know what I mean? It's not going to cause huge damage. And I'm not saying Joshua's got a granite chin, but it's not. I've seen him take some licks off Klitschko, so he's not just going to fall over off anything. When he starts to load up, he's going to leave himself vulnerable. So I lean towards Fury just because I think it's for him to decide. And if he goes one way, I think he's got a pretty good chance. If he goes another way, I think he's probably giving AJ a slight advantage.
Yeah. All right. Well, hopefully we'll get news and then we can talk about it more. But let's move on. I think Joshua Buatsi's fight is now headlining next Saturday against Dos Santos. It's a French light heavyweight. I think he's like 19-0, but the people that he's been fighting have got losing records. I don't think he's even in the top 100. I've got to say, I think it's a bit of a disappointing fight actually for Buatsi to be going into now at this point of his career. I think he's really got to be looking to step it up, or maybe fighting a big domestic fight. I mean, it might not all be his fault and even the promoter's fault, but I think he's got to be going in against better opposition. You know, the domestic scene is pretty lively for light heavyweights, and I think this is just going to be, a very easy job.
Yeah, I mean, he had a hard fight last time, and that fight tested him, and you need that. That's a good kind of. But this does feel like quite a few steps back, especially if he's not in the top 100. I'll be honest, I haven't looked at it today, and you're right. It's a strange move. I hope what's happened is they've given him a bit more of a. They're running him out. They're giving a bit more of an easy fight, and they've very soon got another big fight planned. Yeah. You know what I mean? So he's where we May. So he's back in like early August with a more live opponent. I think that can be forgiven. But if he has this and then he doesn't box until October, and it's it's a bit like, it's hard to know. It's maybe they're struggling to get the kind of quality they need, and I don't know where they are with the Sky budget. Maybe this is why they may need to move the DAZN. They may go, actually, to get the quality we want, we need to be paying more.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. What's happening with Anthony Yard? Is he actually fighting next week now? Because I know that he had some sort of dental problem, which is why he was pulled out of the fight. And they said they moved it 2 weeks.
Well, I can't remember exactly how many weeks, but I remember it not being many. So he should be fighting soon. You have to just look out for confirmation of that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I know this might not be on your list. It just popped into my head, but I know White and Hearn. I'm not sure if it was. I think it was more last week. Had a meeting about who their US opponent could be, and name's gone out of my head now. Who did Ruiz just fight?
Chris Arreola.
Yeah, so he's come up on the radar. And that's not a bad shout. I'm struggling. Who'd be a good fight for him? That's someone who's known but not a big risk. And I was thinking, someone like Washington, but he's almost like that's not exciting enough, really. But the Arreola fight would actually be quite good. And why I think it could be a goer is there'll obviously be a fair bit of money involved. I'm not get the same as he got for Ruiz fight, but I don't imagine it'll be much lower. If he wins the fight, he'll probably have to have a rematch, but that's another big payday, but he'll also be very highly ranked in the WBC, or will be mandatory, or whatever happened with Povetkin. And he may, after we've seen what's happened with White, he may fancy it. And where else is he going to go? I mean, he could start back low again and have a few comeback fights, but he's 40 now, so you've almost got to do a Chisora and just go in big.
Yeah.
And for White, it's a name. It's someone who I probably thought was a bit washed up and proved that he's got a bit left in him. And if he can clean it out, that's a great statement against Ruiz. And he'll fancy it. Yeah. And it's all about times. I mean, Arreola did a great job at, but by actually going the distance for Ruiz and causing him some trouble, he puts himself in the shop window for a really good fight. It's amazing how boxing works. So if it's been cleaned out and don't like that, because then people like White will be, well, I reckon I could take him out in 6, and if I do, I look a lot better versus Andy Ruiz, and it's all about that, isn't it? It's all about, well, he didn't do it, but I did.
Yeah.
So sorry, I thought I'd throw that in because
potentially, yeah, it's. I think that's probably something that could work. Yeah, I quite like that. It would be fan friendly as well. It will definitely be all action. And I think Dillian Whyte does deserve a bit of an easy touch at the moment whilst he's waiting for his WBC position. I think it'd be only fair. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it. I'd call it kind of, a medium touch, but not, a lot easier than he's had. Put it that way.
Yeah. For sure.
I mean, I'd say it'd be these. It will. I'm trying to think who all these fights have been, but like, who did he fight after Lucas Brown?
Is it Hellenius?
Yeah, it's probably the Hellenius level, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is he as dangerous as Rivas? Probably not. So it's kind of between Hellenius and Rivas, perhaps. I don't know.
Yeah.
So Hellenius would win, didn't he?
Yeah.
So yeah, but it's obviously a better fight than the Brown fight. So it's kind of.
Yeah. Other news. I picked up on this actually this week. I think Triller's, Golden Boy's contract with DAZN finishes end of this year. And apparently they're going to be in talks. Well, they're in talks at the moment with Triller about a contract of some sorts to move all of their fighters across to Triller. So I guess just to remind everyone, that would be Ryan Garcia, Jaime Munguia, sort of spring to mind. I'm trying to think who else Golden Boy has.
Talk about Garcia pulling out of his fight because of mental health.
Yeah, I did see that. Yeah.
Quite disappointing. Spoke about.
No, we haven't. No, but yeah, he's pulled out.
You've got to be careful with mental health and that. But he's one of these. He's a young lad. He's all about Instagram and online, and I just find a lot of those people that are kind of, I'm not saying addicted to it, but that's a big chunk of their life and their thing. Do have these mental problems sometimes. A bit generalizing. You see it with other kind of online celebrity thing, don't you? I mean, it must be they want to go down that route, but I don't know if they fully know that you're going to get a lot of criticism and how that's going to affect you. But he doesn't come across as a boxer. He comes across as someone who's like I'm on a celebrity island kind of thing. That has to be a very good boxer. So I hope he sorts himself out and maybe give online a bit of a break.
Yeah, I do, because I think he's great for that division. I think he's a great fighter. I picked Garcia to beat Luke Campbell. That was my first prediction of 2021, which I got right, thankfully. But yeah, he's a great fighter. It's a very strange situation. I think I've talked about this before. The lightweight division, everybody's calling out Ryan Garcia, and he's still kind of not prospect, but he's not. He's in a mandatory position. And he's not, he's not champion yet, and everybody's kind of calling him out. All the champions are calling him out.
It's money. It's money. Money's worth more than belts. That's the thing. Unfortunately, I'm not saying this. It's someone like Chisora. Do you know what I mean? Is he better than someone like Hrgovic? But he's earning more money because he's just more popular.
Yeah.
Now you can play, he's been in the game a long time and he's given his, life to it and build up a fan base. But someone like Garcia has just gone online and become like a star online, as well as boxing, grown that, and it's almost twofold now. You've almost got to, but you can build a fan base without proving yourself as a boxer to some degree.
Yeah.
Though Garcia does look good, he's not won a world title.
Yeah.
But anyone who fights him will probably be on big money because the big fight, Well, I don't know what we're saying. It's happening with Jake Paul and all that.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, that's the best example of it.
Yeah.
Other fight results. Liam Smith loses to Magomed Kabanov. That was on the Al Siesta show on Friday night. I haven't actually seen the fight yet. I do want to see it, but apparently Liam Smith is not very happy. I think he felt that he won the fight. I read from the things that I've read, it was very, very close. Seems to be like a very risky fight for him to be taken, to be honest.
I think he said it was risky, but what was it for again?
I don't think it was for any particular belt. I think it was maybe sanctioned by the WBO. I know he's quite high up in the WBO, but it wasn't for a belt or anything. But now that Kabanov is quite high up in the WBO.
Yeah, he's another one now that's almost, and maybe Billy Joe with what happened. There's a few now that are almost circling around retirement.
Yeah.
You know, your Brooks, Smith, maybe Billy Joe now, and it's like, you know, what does someone like Smith do now? You know, and it's like, do you build up again, or do you just go for try and go for the money fight? Especially when you've won the world title as well. There's got to be that kind of hunger that's like, actually, you know, sod it. I just want 1 or 2 more fights for big money.
Yeah.
And an obvious one could be Ben. I don't know how much money that would be, because Smith isn't, you know, Smith and Ben. I think that's a stretch for pay-per-view.
Well, they're not in the same weight category either, because Liam Smith's light middle, Conor Ben's welter.
Oh yeah, it's a big difference.
I think he's pretty big at light middle as well. But I mean, this is the problem with the light middleweight division is stacked with killers. And not a lot of them are kind of big, like huge pay-per-view stars, with the exception of the Charlo brothers. I know that Jamal Charlo is up at middleweight now, but you've got like Charlo, you've got Sergio Garcia, the Spanish light middleweight that beat Ted Cheeseman. He's very slick, very, very difficult to beat. You've got Tszyu coming up now, from Australia. You've got Castano, Rosario. You know, it's really, really, it's really tough. I mean, people talk about the 154 division being stacked in the UK. It is stacked with, your Cheeseman and Scott Fitzgerald. But I can't see any of those guys, and Anthony Fowler, of course. I can't see any of those guys winning a world title. That's just me.
Sorry, probably it shouldn't be Ben. Brooks probably is more around the weight for.
Kell Brook, yeah.
Thingy. So again, it's like, Kell Brook and Smith. Again, is that pay-per-view? That's a struggle for pay-per-view nowadays.
Yeah.
But like you say, it's very hard for them to get a shot at a title, even have a decent chance at one, winning it. So is there more money with them fighting each other?
Yeah.
That's almost like, is that what Smith does? Just say, actually, I took that risk over there. I've been beat. God knows what money he got for it. Maybe it was quite good because it's Russia. We know that they'll pay a lot in Russia. So maybe he got some decent coin. Now it's like, actually, I've been a world title holder. Brooks been a world title holder. Then they just go, right. It's almost the right to retire. That should be billed almost.
It is. I mean, some fighters don't mind doing that, because it can kind of tarnish their legacy. I mean, Amir Khan is definitely, held off fighting Kell Brook for such a long time. But James DeGale did it. James DeGale fought Chris Eubank Jr. and he was shot to pieces. It was very unlikely he was going to beat a young and fresh and hungry Chris Eubank Jr. It was almost like he had checked out. And he was like, you know what? There'll be pay-per-view on ITV. I'll take a paycheck and then I'll retire. Thank you very much. He was a shadow of the fighter that he was. I'd say pre Badu Jack, actually. I think the Badu Jack took years off James DeGale.
It was a shame. He was winning that fight and until the last round. It's weird that round kind of not defined his career, but if he hadn't got hit, he'd have unified.
Yeah.
And then he would have bounced onto other things, and so it's almost like that round aged him.
It's that round, but also the fight. Like he's a tough fighter, Badu Jack, and I think he had a similar effect on George Groves, because George Groves fought him at super middle, even though Groves got spanked by Carl Froch, which I think he was never really the same fighter after Carl Froch. But yeah, Badu Jack he's just a monster, relentless. But anyway, yeah, I digress. But yeah, we'll see. There's a lot of, you're right. There's a lot of British kind of light middleweights sort of floating around that are going to be looking for a payday and a way out. Staying with the light middleweight. Sorry, Tszyu is now going to be fighting Michael Zerafa on the 7th of July in Australia. I think it's for the final. I think it's a final eliminator for the WBO junior middleweight. But I'd definitely be keeping an eye out for that. Michael Zerafa got beat by Kell Brook, I think, a couple of years ago. But Tszyu is, I think he's going to be a force at light middleweight. He looks pretty big.
Wasn't there another big fight announced a few days ago for July? I'm sure I forwarded it. Yeah, can't remember who on earth it was.
The Teofimo Lopez and Cambosos has been moved to July, I think.
Oh, it might be that then.
Yeah.
Might be that. Yeah.
Other sort of minor news, really. This is more kind of on the gossip trail. Danny Jacobs apparently is going to be looking to fight Joe Smith Jr. for light heavyweight WBO title on DAZN, which is a bit of a strange move because I think Jacobs has only just moved to super middleweight. So I can't quite get my head around why he'd go all the way up to light heavyweight to take on Joe Smith Jr. I mean, I think he's probably the weakest of the light heavyweight champions, to be fair. And apparently Manny Pacquiao news, in talks with Errol Spence for a blockbuster pay-per-view in America.
Has he not been in talks with everyone?
Well, he was in advanced talks with Terence Crawford, but I think it broke down. He was looking to fight in the Middle East, but it didn't quite come together.
I think that's why. Bob Aaron's a bit thingy about the Joshua fight, because I think that was Middle Eastern money, and then it didn't come through. So, if the Saudis put up for Joshua Fury, he's probably going to piss him off a little bit because he couldn't deliver. The one thing I wanted to add was the Sanchez fight on the undercard last night was a bit weird, wasn't it? The guy's name now, but
Aguilera.
Yeah, just Christina Aguilera. Yeah, very odd. But, and people like that, I hope he doesn't get a fight for a long time.
Well, he shouldn't.
You know what I mean?
He shouldn't. Should even get some of his purse withheld. I mean, I'm not, these fighters are going in, they're risking their lives, but when you kind of just lay down like that. But it wasn't like it. I mean, he'd been hit hard. Sanchez tagged him. You could hear those punches just ripping on his chin and his those body shots. Even though he didn't throw that many body shots, you could just hear the shots. And he looked like he was taking them and doing all right in the fight. But yeah, pretty disgraceful. Do you rate that Sanchez? Do you think would you pitch him as one to watch for the heavyweight scene?
I don't know. I'd like to know how old he is, and you don't know with them a lot, do you?
According to BoxRec, he's 28.
Yeah.
You're not having that?
About it. I don't know. I don't see him as a huge threat. I find him a bit. I'm not sure what he does really well. Yeah. But again, he's not. My thing would be, what's his record now? How much has he fought? 18 or
18-0, 14 knockouts.
Yes, it's like, I don't know what his amateur career was like, and that maybe is an excuse. But it's like normally when you're 18 fights in, if you're any good, you're starting to step up the opposition, and you're at least fighting people in some decent rank. I mean, I know this is extreme, but Joshua was fighting for a world title in the 16th fight. I think Fury fought for his world title in his 24th or something like that. So by 18, or you should be fighting recognised names. Now I don't know his amateur pedigree, and it might be something to do with that. But I've got a feeling he's got a good amateur pedigree. Most Cubans have.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We need to see more. I mean, it's always hard to tell at this level. You need to fight someone that you kind of know.
Yeah.
Maybe throw him with Hrgovic.
What about Hrgovic? Do you see him as the next star of the heavyweight division?
I don't know about star. Star's a hard word, really. I think there's a few people who are. The person I still think, especially after the last week's fight, is Usyk. that Parker fight showed how good actually Usyk did against Chisora.
I completely agree.
And I think if there's a star, it'd be him. Whereas everybody else, like Hrgovic, I look at him and I think, well, he could cause some people problems, but that's not what stars do. So yeah, I don't see. He's probably Usyk's the closest thing to star. But even he's going to have like a difficult ride against some of the better fighters. Yeah, I think.
I still have Usyk pretty high on my pound for pound top 10. A lot of people have kind of scoffed at it, and people always, whenever I see it on Twitter, Usyk on high in a pound for pound, they're like, well, what has he done? But he beat everybody at cruiserweight, and cruiserweight at the time as well was a tough division. You had Maris Bradis, he beat Michael Hunter. Like he schooled Michael Hunter. And Michael Hunter at heavyweight is, largely avoided heavyweight.
I mean, when people say, what has he done? I mean, it's really disrespectful. I mean, it's not the right answer, really. He's in my pound for pound. Well, what has he done? It might be, I know he unified that division, but I don't think that division was as strong as it could have been or something like that. Not what has he done. Jesus. Even if you've won a world, winning a world title is a big thing. I mean, we're kind of living in that era now that you're either crap or amazing, and there's no kind of in between. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's like a lot of people, especially Fury fanboys, are like, "Oh, Joshua, he's crap. He's just a bodybuilder." Well, even if Tyson Fury beats him, which he may well do, he's not crap. He's still gone and beat quite a lot of decent people and unified. And he's an Olympic champion, so it's almost Joshua's really, really, really good, and Fury's just elite if he beats him, and the gap's about that much, and it goes down a long way, So it's a bit odd from people's perspective. Just on, did you say you rewatched the Billy Joe fight? Any changes in attitude or anything?
Not really. I mean, I was quite hyped up when I was watching the fight anyway, so it probably is a little bit more difficult to score. I probably, I think I gave Billy Joe like 3 rounds. And I don't see a strong case to give him any more than that. And if somebody said he only had 2 rounds, it'd be difficult to kind of, argue with that. Some of those punches are, when you hear them, cracking against his body and his face, he's pretty much broken his face. Like the injury is horrendous. Like that punch that did it, like I saw that punch that did it, I replayed it a couple of times. I mean, it's terrifying. I mean, it will... probably lead a lot of his next opponents to question that, their tactics or psychological warfare about winding Canelo up, because he definitely had the adverse effect on Billy Joe, for sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've seen you put pictures now, and it just shows how. I mean, it's worse than Brooks look. It looks like
way really worse. I haven't seen anything like that before. His face caved in, and
they said he couldn't see, so. Blinded permanently or something really, just to see what comes out in the next few weeks. But and then of course the one thing that's happened since is we had a bit of disturbance at the press conference.
Oh yeah, Andrade.
Yeah, again, a bit daft saying who have you fought and stuff like that, and you can see when people say, oh, he doesn't look at him and think, oh, I could cause him problems, but it's the way people go about it. It's almost just like throwing insults, which are pretty pointless. I mean, how can you really like slag off Canelo's record or ability? But it's almost like you have to do it in a really false way to hype the fight and get the fight. And the reason he wants the fight is to get the belts, but it's a huge payday as well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I know, it's a bit embarrassing. All right, should we wrap it up? So I think next week we'll do boxing news. Hopefully we'll get the big announcement next week. And then we can do a review of the Matchroom card, Joshua Buatsi. And then we'll do predictions for Josh Taylor versus Jose Ramirez, which is on the 22nd in Vegas. Apparently...
We still got a network for that?
Yeah, we have. Yeah, Fight TV in the UK is going to be showing it.
Oh, that is on the box.
Yeah, so again, I do think it's a bit strange that it's not arrived on BT. There's definitely something going on there.
Sounds really crap.
Yeah, Fight TV, FITE TV.
We got more subscribers than us though. So
probably. Yeah. All right. On that note, Let's wrap it up. All right. Thanks everybody for listening. Please like and share and subscribe.